Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the gritty, honestly, pretty surprising reality behind one of the most recognizable faces on Earth. Because look, this isn't just a story about fast food. It is an absolute masterclass in sheer persistence, starting over from literally nothing and just flat out refusing to accept defeat.
Okay, so let's jump right into the action here. Picture this. It's the mid-1950s. You're on a two-lane American highway and you see a 65-year-old man who's basically living out of his car. It doubles as his bedroom, and right there in his trunk, a portable stove and a pressure cooker. This guy has just lost his restaurant, he's lost his gas station, and he's lost pretty much everything he owned. His only income is this tiny Social Security check. And yet this broke senior citizen is out there on the road, pitching what was, at the time, a radically unconventional idea.
Section 1. Selling for a nickel.
Over 1,000. I mean, really let that sink in. Over 1,000. That's the staggering number of times this man, armed with literally nothing but a portable stove and a pressure cooker, walked into skeptical small-town diners just asking for 10 minutes in their kitchen. He'd pull into a town, lug his gear inside, season the chicken with his top-secret blend, cook it, and plate it himself. And then the owner would taste it, shrug, and say, no. So what did he do? He packed up his stove, got back in his car, and drove to the next town to do it all over again. By his own account, he heard the word no over 1,000 times before anyone finally said yes. And the craziest part? He wasn't even asking for thousands of dollars. He was pitching a royalty deal for just a nickel per chicken.
Section 2. Before the famous bucket.
Now, to really grasp how he got to this incredibly desperate point on the road, we kind of have to rewind a bit. Harlan Sanders was born in Indiana in 1890. And honestly, by the time he hit 40, he had already failed at a remarkable number of careers. Through the 1910s and 20s, he tried being a steam engine stoker, an insurance salesman, a ferry boat operator, even a lawyer for a brief stint. Actually, that last one ended super abruptly because he got into a literal courtroom brawl with his own client and was fired on the spot. So yeah, none of these jobs stuck. It wasn't until 1930, at 40 years old, with all these false starts behind him, that he finally just started cooking meals for highway travelers passing through his gas station. There was absolutely no grand vision of a global empire at this point. Over the next 10 years, he just obsessed over this. He experimented relentlessly. By 1939, he had finally perfected the two things that would define his entire life: his famous blend of 11 herbs and spices, and a pressure frying method that cooked the chicken way faster while keeping it tender. His local reputation actually got so good that in 1935, Kentucky's governor commissioned him as an honorary Kentucky colonel. And then, fast forward to 1952, he does something quietly radical. He sells his first franchise to a Utah restaurateur named Pete Harmon. He didn't ask Harmon for a massive flat fee up front. He just asked for a nickel per chicken sold, meaning the buyer didn't have to put up any upfront capital.
Section 3. The highway that took everything.
But then, just as he finally builds up this really steady, successful roadside business, the ground literally shifts under his feet. Before Interstate 75 was built, Sanders had this thriving roadside cafe, right? But it depended entirely on travelers passing by on the old road. So after the new highway goes in, all that traffic gets routed completely around his town. The customers just vanished. His business collapsed overnight. He was forced to sell his restaurant, sell his gas station, and he walked away in his mid-60s with next to nothing, just relying on a Social Security check. A totally new highway that he had zero say in building just wiped out his one real success.
Section 4. 1,000 rejections.
Now, at an age when most people are, really thinking about slowing down and retiring, Sanders didn't. He took the one thing that Interstate couldn't pave over, his recipe and his cooking method, and he hit the road to rebuild. He had absolutely zero advertising budget, no marketing department, nothing. So he built a brand out of thin air. He took that honorary title from the governor and turned it into a walking, impossible-to-ignore brand identity. The white suit, the string tie, the neatly trimmed goatee. He realized this incredibly savvy instinct. If you can't afford to buy people's attention, you have to become impossible to ignore in person.
And his strategy? It was this absolutely grueling 4-step grind. Step 1, drive to a local diner. Step 2, cook the chicken right there in their own kitchen. Step 3, plate it himself, letting the food do the talking. And step 4, ask for a nickel per chicken sold. Like we talked about, he required no upfront capital, making it super low risk for the diner owners. But for Sanders, it meant facing hundreds and hundreds of immediate face-to-face rejections. It was a high-risk, incredibly high-effort grind for a guy sleeping in his car.
Section 5. Wallpaper paste and principles.
But here's the thing, that relentless grind,
It actually worked. By 1964, this broke 65-year-old cooking out of his trunk had grown his franchise model to over 600 outlets across 5 countries. He eventually sold the company to investors John Y. Brown Jr. and Jack Massey for $2 million, keeping a lifetime salary and his role as the brand's public face. But wait, this isn't just a neat little corporate fairy tale where he rides off into the sunset. Sanders fiercely protected his recipe. Once he wasn't in control anymore, he clashed constantly with the new corporate management over food quality. In fact, in a 1975 interview, he publicly insulted the company's new gravy, literally calling it, quote, wallpaper paste. He claimed it was made from cheap tap water and starch. I mean, that is about as blunt a public criticism as a founder can possibly level at a company that's actively using his face on every single bucket.
Well, as you might guess, the parent company, Heubelin, was not thrilled. They responded to his honesty by removing him as a spokesman and actually suing him for libel. But the kicker? The case was eventually thrown out by Kentucky's Supreme Court. It just proved his unyielding dedication to honest quality. The man who literally built his brand by personally proving the quality of his food with his own 2 hands, he just couldn't stay quiet when he felt that quality was slipping, even when it cost him the very role he secured in the buyout.
Section 6. The lesson under the bucket.
So look, today the Colonel's face is everywhere. It's one of the most recognized global brand images out there. But the real legacy we should take away from this explainer is not about buckets of fried chicken. It's about what happens when you refuse to let a closed door be the end of your story. This gives us a real practical secret recipe for persistence. Number 1, it is never too late to rebuild, even if you're starting over in your 60s with nothing but a car and a stove. Number 2, persistent rejection doesn't mean your idea is wrong. It usually just means you haven't found the right partner yet. Number 3, protect what makes your work distinctive. Don't let anyone dilute it. Number 4, speak honestly about quality, even when it is deeply uncomfortable. And finally, a personal touch sells way better than any standard corporate pitch. Nobody bought this chicken off a slick brochure. They bought it because a man showed up in their kitchen and proved it to them.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If a 65-year-old broke man can build a global empire from the trunk of his car, what is stopping you from taking your next step today? Really think about that and challenge your own excuses. None of this history happens if you let the 999th no convince him that there wasn't a 1,000th conversation worth having. If this explainer reminded you that it is absolutely never too late to start over, hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the real stories of people who just started long before the world ever gave them permission to. We will catch you in the next explainer.